Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new series from Analytic and Tribal Impact focusing on social advocacy and with a keen focus on interviewing influential employees. So I'd like to welcome Rob McCargow to this week's interview. Rob, do you want to introduce yourself and tell the audience a bit about you and your background?
Yes, thank you, Tim, and thanks to you and Sarah for the opportunity to join this conversation. So I'm the Director of Artificial Intelligence for PwC in the UK. So I spend a lot of my time advising our clients across many different sectors on how to harness AI, how to adopt the technology, but also working with governments looking at the policy implications, the economic impact, and a lot of focus on the implications on the world of work, the impact of job automation. And a lot of that is also to try to sort of raise the profile of the technology in a broader business audience, try to break down some of the jargon and make it a far more accessible topic. And I think a big part of that has been my ability to, broadcast some of this on the social media platforms I use.
Great, fantastic. So obviously the first question is since we're talking about social media influence, is how did you develop your social media influence?
I think I started a lot on LinkedIn. My very first career, I was in recruitment and headhunting. So LinkedIn was really the go-to default platform. You know, it was your black book that you took away with you wherever you went, jobs, etc. So I think for me, LinkedIn was always a way of life. I would automatically just add you as soon as I met you or bumped into you on an email or a chat. So I think that was just running in the background quite substantially. But I think in the last 5 years in particular, as I've evolved this particular job, working with Twitter has really caught fire for me. And for me, that's quite a different approach. Happy to explain how I manage both different platforms. But for me, the approach with LinkedIn is probably more from a kind of professional broadcast of thought leadership and content on a less frequent basis. And Twitter is more of a regular, constant conversation, very high engagement. I'll always reply unless someone's rude to me. And it's a much higher volume and slightly less formal platform for me.
So
I think
first note is don't be rude to Rob. But
yeah, I think we take that as a note to self. But actually, how do you find time for this, Rob? Because a lot of people will be sat there saying, well, you know, it's hard enough trying to shoehorn LinkedIn to my day, you know, and you're talking about Twitter now, which is much more in the moment conversation. I get the idea that a lot of people, it's part of your DNA now, so you can't almost compartmentalize and say, right, I spend this much time on Twitter and this much time. But how do you fit it? How does it kind of generally work for you?
I think the routine that I've been in over the last 3 or 4 years in particular is fairly regimented now. It is second nature. In the days when we used to commute, of course, I would tend to do a lot on the train on the way into London. I would often have another burst of activity during the lunch break, where maybe the North American community would come online, and then throughout the evening on the train on the way home, and maybe watching TV half-heartedly and giving it another blast then. So that sort of in the background has always been my routine, the sort of 3 bursts across the course of the day. I'm not a fan of automation. I don't do any scheduling. There's no gimmicks or tricks at all in my feed. What you see is what you get, for better or for worse. I think, though, as that has started to deliver results, it's given me tremendous personal achievements in terms of appointments to advisory boards, countless opportunities to deliver talks around the world. Last 2 years, I've been to 25 countries giving talks. Bit by bit, it starts being able to demonstrate genuine value, commercial value, and brand benefits, to the point where now it's an accepted part of my job description. You know, so a portion of my time is given over to helping to continue to mature our brand in the emerging tech space.
And I think one question which I want to ask you, Rob, is you've obviously developed your influence and have been really successful at doing it. Quite often employees are starting out on this road and not seeing results straight away. And so one thing that I really like to think about your advice is how to sort of keep motivated when maybe the results don't come in week 1 or week 2. So can you talk us a bit through a bit about your first couple of months and when you felt like this was something you should maintain?
I think the first thing you should try to do is just spend the first period of time watching. I think about the most benefits in the early part of, in particular with Twitter, just seeing how it works rather than trying to think you have to make a big splash. And I think you can learn a lot just from watching how people interact and how they curate their content. I think bit by bit, though, as you start to gain the confidence to start putting yourself out there, I think you're going to be clear about what you stand for, what people are expecting to see in your content. And a good colleague of mine, Andy Woodfield, who I learned a lot of my tricks of the trade from, always talked about the need for maybe sort of 3 key subject areas that you're known for, that people expect to follow. So for me, for example, it's AI and emerging tech. A lot of work on things like the future of work and the issues around jobs in the workplace, and then a lot of work around gender equality are the 3 that people would see me and want to hear from me about, maybe populated with a portion of those sprinkled with more personal anecdotes, or you guys might have been following me recently of the tales and tribulations of my new Vizsla puppy, just rapidly destroying any furniture in the house, etc. Just to inject a bit of personality and self-deprecation into it. And I think if you've got a pattern of like the content that you're known for, it makes it easier to work out what you want to share. I think it then builds up a concentration of followership and people that increasingly then want to engage with you. I think if you're just spraying and praying random content, and there's a real risk in big corporates that you can fall into this trap. And I think I think there was a friend of ours, Alexander Lowe, Tim, that talks about this concept of corporate vomit. Clearly big enterprises produce huge amounts of thought leadership and analyses and reports. And then at one point in the day, they're all instructed to press play and send it out en masse in exactly the same format. No personalization, no personal commentary. And this unfortunately doesn't get any meaningful engagement to speak of, to justify the amount of time and energy it goes into building the content. So I think be clear about what you're for, what your followers are expecting from you, and getting to a routine of being quite careful about what you're sharing, until you've got the first foot on the ladder of having some followership that you can then engage with.
Just to put on that point, actually, because one thing that when we certainly work with organizations and employees, they can't, how do you unpack that? How we understand what content I stand for? What you talked about, picking 3 pieces of content you want to be known for, but quite often people don't look into themselves to see how they're different, what their unique proposition is. And does that come over time? Do you sit down and go, right, well, this is what I want to be known for, so now I'm going to find content for that? How do you learn that process? Because I think a lot of people get stuck at that point where they're like, I don't really know what I want to be known for. I'm a bit of a generalist, really. So how does that work?
You know what? I mean, I think something I dwell on quite a lot is the concept of being influential on social media and being an influencer for the sake of being an influencer. Mm-hmm. Where I think you can detect if someone's just trying to be an influencer, there's no real love or care or passion or belief in the content they're sharing. They're simply sharing it for likes and clicks. Yeah. So I think this runs in parallel with your own career journey, your ability to find purpose and meaning in your own work, and that for me was true. I came into this field about 5 years ago. As the years have gone by, constantly inspired by the topics I speak about. It matters to everybody. Everyone's interested in it, and I'm lucky to be able to be a commentator in this field and a practitioner in this field. So I think it's got to have a real, firm connection with your own passion and purpose. It can't just be that sounds like a topic I will have a go at doing. It's got to run through your veins.
I love that. There's a difference between being an influencer and influential, and really defining that. Yeah, it's brilliant. That, and actually comes back to your point about authenticity. There's no sort of fakery in what you do. It's you behind the scenes, and you're the one that's engaging. I love that. So Yeah, brilliant.
I think we should have a bingo click every time authenticity is
Yeah,
used.
go on then.
Yeah, so I think we need to build that in for the future series.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have a bingo card.
So Rob, you talked about your audience, and what fascinates me is whether people know the makeup of their audience on social across LinkedIn and Twitter. I mean, obviously people have a sense, but with things that are hard to measure, and obviously you can see the people that are engaging. Could you? I mean, is your audience like PwC, Vizsla puppy owners? I know that you post about your beard that did very successfully on. So is it like male grooming, Vizsla puppies, PwC, and AI audience, or like do you get a sense of role and location and who you're having conversations with?
I think it's intelligence that is only starting to become clear to me. In particular, you guys do a great job on that in terms of doing a breakdown of the followership breakdown. But I think in the first iteration, you just need to build a degree of mass, and I think that will start evolving over time to the point now where I have met many of our clients through this, new clients, not just ones we already work with. Weirdly, I do a lot of my business communication on Twitter DM. I find that is, I'm having a lot of virtual coffees with people at the moment in this brave new world. So increasingly, it's an enterprise communication tool in a kind of an informal way. And so, yeah, over the course of time, I think I've got a greater appreciation of the makeup of my followership.
That's nice. Really good. And what about in PwC? Do you support other employees on their journey like this? Are they sort of showcasing you as a bit of an example within the company? And is there the support infrastructure there to help you?
I think there is, and it comes in two different directions. There's the kind of the top-down central brand and marketing teams that can help distribute and disseminate the new content for people to post and comment on. And there's also an opportunity to access internal training courses on how to do it. But I think that the bit that I've been far more attached to and been at the heart of, and it's the most enjoyable part of this whole social media game, is this more bottom-up approach of employee advocacy. And we've got a tremendous community at PwC. We've got a very large number of people globally on Twitter in particular, and everyone's on LinkedIn, but I'm talking about the Twitter community here. We do a lot of gamification in a friendly way, but it's more about inspiring people to join and to overcome that issue at the start when you're dawdling on 4 followers, get 1 like a quarter, and it's totally soul destroying, to rapidly insert them into the middle of the community. So you'll often see me saying, great, here's Frankie, she's just joined our practice in climate change. Let's all follow her and give her a boost and share content, etc. And it's been brilliant, that, because people suddenly get an instant kick at the start and get a taste of how powerful it can be.
Yeah, and that's a great idea, because I think this is where a lot of companies, when they do advocacy, they do that approach you were talking about earlier, which is, the can you share this? This is just like get it out there. But actually, when you do it the right way, which is it's kind of like a community internally, and you help each other out and you support each other and you train and you mentor and you learn from one another, probably the best way to do it, really. So
totally, yeah. And I think the bit that's been really powerful in an organization so big and potentially quite hierarchical is the way that it flattens these silos down in the different seniority and rank and grading going on. So I'm as friendly with people on our global executive board as I am with probably our proudest social media achievement is getting the inspirational Francis onto Twitter. Now, this guy runs our front desk in our head office. And he's an incredibly inspiring man. We call him our Chief Welcome Officer, head office. We have clients that will be booked into our other office and specifically asked to be rebooked into the other main office to see Francis.
Meet him.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a huge
Brilliant.
guy. He'll spot you. He knows everybody's name. And we managed to encourage him onto Twitter 2 years ago. And it's just been brilliant. Everyone now is getting selfies with him when they go in. We've had prime ministers getting selfies with him, and it peaked at Davos last year. He was taken to Davos to run our client lounge, and he got a selfie with Matt Damon. So,
Wow.
Who knew? Who knew
so
that
that's
could
been
happen?
brilliant. So the ability to create a sort of informal community and flatten the hierarchy is really powerful. And it's not just for the sake of it. This has genuinely led to collaboration. It's led to new projects getting off the ground. It's lifted morale. It's helped with well-being and mental health. And I think overall, it to avoid the A word, I think it genuinely does show the authentic side of the firm.
Yeah.
And I think the risk with big firms is they can be seen as a fairly soulless corporate Goliath without that level of sort of human essence at the heart of it.
Absolutely brilliant.
So apart from being very miffed that I didn't get to meet Francis when I went to the PwC offices, I guess that the whole definition of social media was exactly what you're talking about, to break down the boundaries, to just create social environments. But I suppose the word social media has just become this commoditized channel that people are now trying to drive business from. So it's really great that you're encouraging people who are starting off to get that engagement, because sometimes I think Sarah and I see that people start off and then just get a bit discouraged when they're not getting the traction. And I suppose to get them past the algorithms, to build a bit of traction so that they start, their posts can trend in different hashtags, and it gets them into that debate, and then they can go somewhere from that moment, I guess, rather than sort of leaving them to their own devices, because they might not have the same motivation as you because they haven't realized the benefits.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and I see countless colleagues who looked like they had a go 3 years ago and have just run fallow, and it's become more or less dormant accounts for 2 or 3 years since. And that's precisely because I think you get off to a bit of a burst of momentum, and then nothing comes back. There's no payback. It reminds me of having a newborn baby, and I've had 3 young kids. For me, as much as I love my children, there's very little immediate payback in the first few weeks.
First 18 years, I think.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, until they start working and paying. Yes,
Yeah.
I could definitely relate to
but
that.
they're financially independent after 40 years, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's all right then. We've not got long to wait then. I have 3 kids as well, Rob. It's I sympathise.
So so Rob, with the busy senior exec, that the old line, don't have time for this. Like, do you? It seems like you're encouraging a lot of the people that are already on social media wanting to get into this. I mean, Francis aside, that's obviously a wonderful story. What about the senior leaders or the people that do think they're too busy? Like, do you have any advice for them, or what? How do you think that this is going to evolve in the next few years?
I think that it's increasingly critical now that people appreciate what personal brand is, what it means, and how crucial it is to success. I think there's constantly more and more growth in the way that people are being checked out prior to a meeting, and maybe a cursory LinkedIn check might have taken place, but increasingly in the world of employment, checking people out prior to conferences and big events or business meetings. It'll be a far broader multi-platform sort of sweep to work out what this person's about. So the greater intelligence you're able to have on somebody, the more powerful the conversation can go. And I think it goes from being kind of a nice to have hobby on the side to being a fundamental requirement as a business leader to demonstrate what you stand for, to be accessible to both your workforce and your customer base and the broader community you serve, to have a natural tone of voice, not to be packaged up and turned into a kind of an automaton, some sort of PR robot. And I think it's a very, very powerful platform once you get it right. Of course, it is fraught with danger. You've got to be careful. You've got to be mindful, but you can put personality and you can get some opinions across in a way that enhances your brand, increases your business success, and just gives you more enjoyment in the communities that you're part of.
I also, just to add to that, I almost wonder whether in the future of work and where this is all going to go, which is obviously a topic you know all about, Rob. It's just how, you know, being accessible and but as a digital leader, it's like you say, it's no longer a nice to have, it's essential, right? It's critical. Employees want to see you digitally. Customers want to reach you. People want to hear what you're saying or what you're saying. You know, they want to be connected to you when they can't be in the same office as you. And I just wonder if now more than ever, this is more important, or is it accelerated its importance? Do you think?
Well, I totally agree. You know, there's a nice analogy there, isn't there, about people that lose one of their senses and how it enhances another of their senses to make up for it. You know, it's the same thing here. We've been stripped of the ability to engage in person, in business meetings, conferences, all the things that many of us do on a regular basis. So this absolutely enhances and prioritizes the need to do this well. And I think even before this this lockdown crisis kicked in, increasingly there was a need, as you were saying, Sarah, to demonstrate that sort of human side of your life, and especially when now we're contemplating the very, very essence of the fabric of the workplace changing. Shift patterns will change. When you're on, when you're off, how do you demarcate between leaving this home office and joining the family out there later this afternoon? How do you get that compartmentalization right? But also, how do you show your staff and your workforce what you're about? And I think increasingly, even before this lockdown, we had some great success with, in particular, senior men, you know, saying, listen, I'm on the school run, here I'm out walking the dog after picking the kids up from school, to destigmatize this always on or this kind of clock watching culture, and to kind of encourage people to do that. Similar with another topic, you know, close to my heart, and do a lot of work at PwC around this, is around mental health and well-being, and having this sort of platform to openly speak about this, whether it's on podcasts or webcasts like this. I think it really you know, allows you to turbocharge some of these critical issues to bring a broader section of your workforce into the conversation.
Yeah, super.
Great. I think it's really interesting because you've got a really good routine, and you've got three times a day that you focus on social media, and I also like what you're saying about not posting too much on LinkedIn, and that it's I think you say that you post 1 or 2 times a week on LinkedIn, whereas Twitter, obviously there's a sort of a continuity about it, and you know, it's fine to continually push out content. It's a kind of like more of a sort of swipe left, swipe right, you know, kind of quick, like sort of social media culture. So so you've obviously got your pattern worked out, but I suppose there's a lot of people that need education around that, and you know, everything from training to social media regulations within the company. So I just wondered how you think that this might evolve, or whether there's what kind of support is given to the sort of wider masses of PwC to be able to find their own way of running this.
I think a good proportion of this is common sense, and especially when you're talking about sensitive issues, whether it's political, religious, you know, contentious issues, you know, just use some common sense to think about this. You know, regularly I've often drafted a tweet and thought, you know what, I'm not quite sure this is actually coming across well, sat on it and then deleted it later. And especially when you're angry about something, which you often are on Twitter.
Hitting the keyboard.
You spend about 95% of your time on Twitter mainly angry and wanting to shout at people. Unfortunately, I'm joking, it's more like 97%. But you know, just taking a pause of breath and thinking, this is in perpetuity now. You know, it's a permanent marker that people can always refer back to. Do you really want to be known for this commentary? So I think getting that across is important. Nevertheless, there are both a few helpful tactics and strategies that give people the head start, as we've discussed, to get off the mark. And then there are just some requirement. There's a bit of a gentle prompt to give some certainty around the ground rules. You know, what we can and can't talk about, really, if we're being sensible. just to keep people on the straight and narrow. So yeah, I think those 2 points do require a certain investment internally to give people the rigor and the discipline and the certainty of what to do.
I think it's about building a confident, a culture that's confident on social, isn't it? And that's going to take time. And for years, we've been telling our employees, do not say anything on social media about our company. We've got media trained people for that. Do not get involved. Don't. And then all of a sudden, we've switched it the other way because everybody's heard about employee advocacy. And now we're like, get out on social media, start share, you know. And I think employees are understandably a little bit cautious, aren't they? And I think just building that confidence in a way, like you say, common sense. But one customer said to me once, Rob, you know, common sense for one employee is not common sense for another. So don't assume that there's a level of common sense. You almost got to spell it out for them and give them guidance. So which I thought was quite funny. I won't tell you the story, but it was pretty bad what they did. But I've got a quick question for you, Rob, actually, which is because a lot of people will be like, I'm investing loads of time in this. What's the reward? What do I get out of this? When do I start seeing a return on the time investment I'm putting in? So what kind of things do you see as outcomes for the time that you invest in?
So I think this is important to get clear that the way that you measure success and a return on investment through social is not how you do it in almost anything else in life. You know, you can go running every day and eventually you'll break your half marathon time. You can sort of measure success by amount of effort put in, etc. But it comes in a very weird way. I talk a lot about serendipity with social media. I talk about serendipitous collisions. There's random things that slam together and suddenly you're connected with the most inspiring person in Canada and something gets off the ground. So it's very hard to sort of track that and measure it and be too scientific about it, in my opinion. But from a personal perspective, it's been absolutely transformative in my career. I've, as I said before, traveled the world. I've been invited to speak at the United Nations. I've been, at multiple glamorous conferences. I've met Hollywood celebrities, met Robert De Niro, met Harrison Ford. I had dinner with Princess Anne. I got the chance to do a TEDx talk.
Oh my word!
I've been appointed to 4 or 5 advisory boards, and you know, increasingly, all these things help continually propel you into interesting business conversations with clients, governments, stakeholders, regulators around the world, and it's hard to sort of equate. Really, I couldn't have done this without social media.
And so, when you were starting, Rob, like, did you have any objectives at that point? Were you just wanting to connect with a few clients and prospects, or to just understand the conversation a bit more? Did you ever have any kind of dream of these kind of ambitions, or did it just naturally happen and then you just took it in your stride over the years?
I think it is much more the latter than the former, Tim, if I'm being honest. I don't think I ever had a strategy. I don't think I had a plan. I was finding it useful to engage. I've had a few quick, interesting introductions of people, you know, in the early days. I think I just was keen to see where it led. Just followed my nose, kept going at it, kept learning how to do it well. And then realized that increasingly it's not about actually you, it's how you bring other people into the conversation. So I'm much more interested now in helping to bring other people into the community, because I get more of a kick out of that. And I think that builds up, again, different sorts of followership. And then people, will increasingly come to you for more formal business purposes on a regular basis. I
think that community is just bang on. I think, by giving and not, so many people are keen to ask too early, aren't they, to try and drive that ROI or whatever return they're trying to get out of it in the first kind of month. But I think your approach has obviously paid off by giving, by trying to bring community together, and by learning, and you've actually got a lot more out of it. I think that's a great a great example.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical that you think you've got to think about why you're doing this. It's not purely just to, I don't know, get to the top of charts all the time and think about followers. In fact, actually, you guys do the analytics more on this, but my followers aren't particularly high. I think I've got about 16,000 on both platforms. So it's not about sheer volume. I think it's about level of engagement with a high quality community that you sit within.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, there's a lot of talk around the influencers that have more engagement, and actually a smaller audience, but a highly engaged audience. And I think it's not a popularity contest. This is actually about sharing, helping, supporting your network, your community. And I love the idea of just following your nose and see where it goes, because who would have thought when you started on this journey like 6 years ago, you'd be having dinner with Princess Anne and, meeting Robert De Niro. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? But I think that's the excitement of social, is that it can open so many opportunities, and they all come from different angles that you'd never expect. And I think if you go into these with an agenda, if you go in like, it's not pick up phone, get client meeting, it's not that immediate anymore. It's more the nature and the whole see how it forms and goes. I just think it's brilliant and exciting, makes it interesting as well. So yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on our series, Rob. It's the first
made
of
the first one so easy.
first of many, and I don't know. I just got a lot out of it. I think that you exemplify all the character traits of employee advocacy programs and just the sort of general culture of social media. So it's great to hear your successes, and obviously we can see from the analysis that you're indexing high in terms of engagement around the topics you're passionate about. And I love the fact that you post on personal stuff and it drives a lot of engagement as well around your beard and Vizsla puppies, etc. So I'm very jealous of you getting to meet all those wonderful people. But I think it's a testament to all the great stuff that you've done. So thank you for sharing all of your experiences and thoughts on this channel.
Well, thanks to Tim and thanks to you, Sarah, for a lovely chat.
Great. And can you just remind the audience where they can find you on social and online?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll find me, Rob McCargow, on LinkedIn and at Rob McCargow on Twitter as my two main platforms.
Fantastic. And if you want to see any more employee influencer interviews on Analytical or Tribal's websites, just visit the resources page. We will bring you a couple of these per month and look forward to seeing you at our next one.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.